Hello, and welcome to this episode of Hone Your Speaker Skills to be a better speaker. I'm continuing on the theme of the storytelling. Now, for the last couple of weeks, I mentioned the antagonist, the protagonist, I should say, the hero, the antagonist, the baddie, and the conflict. What's the problem between them? Why is this an issue? Well, like every childhood story you remember that came off with once upon a time, or are you sitting comfortably? It had to finish with, and they lived happily ever after, didn't it? There had to be some form of resolution. You couldn't leave the children hanging. They wanted to know what happened next. That's the point of a good story. You're going to bring people along the journey with you. But at some point, you need to let them relax and know that there is an end to this story. There is a resolution. Now, it may be happily ever after. It may not be happily ever after, but there's some form of resolution of that conflict that I was talking about last week. Well, let me unpack a bit of this for you. We were talking, I mentioned over the last couple of weeks, I've given you a couple of examples in terms of stories that I use from my personal story bank. Do you remember I was suggesting that you gather in those stories from your life and all the examples from your clients, whether it be individuals or a composite, that you can use to illustrate the points that you're making when you give a presentation, when you talk on a podcast, and you're making a point and you give a story to back it up, to illustrate it, to make the point. Well, I mentioned, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about how much detail do you give of the characters involved. And when we were talking about the hero, I mentioned about the fact that this particular heroine wore glasses. And it was important because she dropped them when out walking in a particular area in Melbourne. So the hero, or anti-hero at this point, was me. And the baddie, if you will, was the fact that I'd lost my glasses. They'd fallen out of my pouch. The conflict, what was I going to do about it? The resolution, I have to tell you. Well, no, let's carry on with the conflict for a minute. The conflict was, I have lost a pair of glasses. Now, as you can tell, when it comes to close work or looking at something in fine detail, I do need them. One has reached that age in life where, the arms aren't quite long enough. That was an important detail for the story. Now, what I've shared with you so far is the hero, the villain, and the conflict. What was I going to do? I'd lost a pair of glasses. Now, I didn't resolve that one, did I? I just left you hanging. The conflict, what did I do? What was the resolution? Well, the resolution, the story as it went was, having discovered that I dropped my glasses somewhere, I don't know where. And I mentally and physically retraced my steps. I went to all the places where I could possibly have dropped them, which included IKEA, very large store. When did I have them out? What was I looking at? Where possibly could I have dropped them? I retraced my steps. I even looked underneath the pallets and things of the things that I was looking at. No. I left a message with their customer services. If somebody hands in a pair of glasses, give us a call. I did the same in Coles, which is a supermarket. I did the same for the centre manager, the shopping mall manager. I went back to the GP surgery where I had started, and I know I had them after that, but this was just in case I dropped them outside and somebody picked them up and handed them in. Nothing, nada, no contact at all about my glasses. Now, the resolution for me was I had to let it go. I wasn't going to get them. That pair of glasses was basically lost to me. The resolution in my mind was let it go, let it go. And that's what I had to do. Let it go. So that's the resolution. Now, I mentioned a couple of other little stories for you, and again, we'll talk about those. The asking for help. Do you remember the world fell out of my bottom? When I was in Kuala Lumpur and I had some significant health challenges, I went to get a blood test. And I was told that my blood test results were incompatible with life. Now, that's a bit of a strong statement, and one that kind of brings you up sharp. I was telling this tale in a networking meeting recently, and I forgot to give the end of it. And just as we're finishing off, somebody went, hang on, Wendy, you've got to tell us what happened. I mean, clearly you're still alive and we don't know when this particular tale happened. So I went, oh, I forgot to tell you, didn't I? I left that loop open. And the unconscious mind wants to go, oh, come on, tell me, what happened? Well, what happened was when I was told that my blood test results were incompatible with life, apart from shock, the doctor who told me this looked at me and went, I think I might be wrong. I mean, you just walked in here, clearly very much alive, a smile on your face. Shall we do the blood test again? Yes, please. The resolution of that tale was the asking for help, the accepting help, and trusting that all would be well. And I have to tell you that whilst the results weren't A1 perfect, they were a heck of a lot better than the incompatible with life. And I was given the all clear to go back to Melbourne the week after. What was the resolution? When you ask for help and you trust the process, it's all right to let go. Hey, that's two things of letting it go, isn't it? Can you see a theme here? This is part of my experience in this season of my life that I'm in at the moment. So that's what I mean by resolution. When you are creating your story bank, when you're pushing out all the elements of your great story to illustrate the point that you want to make from your work, your business book, your program, whatever it is that you are bringing to life on camera or in person. Remember, you need the hero, the villain, the conflict, and the resolution. Now, that's not the end of the story, because, yep, that's a great story. Yep, fine. But there are a few more elements that I want you to consider when you're telling a story to illustrate a point to your audience. Come back next week and we will unpack a little bit more, because at the moment it's, oh, that was a fun tale. That was great. Well done, you. You got through a nasty situation. You let it go. Bully for you. What's it got to do with me? Come back next week. I have left an open loop for you. I've given you a conundrum. I've opened that. What is she going to talk about next week? Cliffhanger, if you will. You'll have to come back, find out the next exciting installment. And that in and of itself is a strategy to engage your audience. Think of it this way. When you've watched a movie, have you ever had that experience of they'll give you the backstory of one character, they'll give you the backstory of another character, and they'll flip between the two. And it's only as things go forward that you can see where these two resolve. But in the between time, that's an open loop. Your mind is flicking backwards and forwards going, where's this going? So whilst I've given you some resolution on the story per se, that's not the end of the story. Come back next week and we'll look into a bit more about the anatomy of a really good story. For now, bye from me.